You're listening to Coupled With, the podcast that helps you take the guesswork out of feeling seen, heard, and valued in your relationship. If you've ever felt stuck in the same arguments, struggled to stay connected, or wondered how to better communicate with your partner, you're in the right place. I'm Dr. Rachel Orleck, a couples therapist and coach, and together, we're going to make relationships make sense. Let's dive in. So you won the argument. Congratulations. You stacked your evidence, lined up every contradiction, delivered the final punch. Maybe your partner went quiet, sighed, or even admitted that you were right. But what did you actually win? Instead of relief, there's tension. Instead of closeness, there's a gap. You're sitting across from someone who feels smaller, unheard, and further away than before. My clients tell me that this is one of the most disorienting parts of conflict. Realizing you've won, but still feeling like you've lost. They say things like, I had all the proof, they couldn't argue back, and yet I felt lonelier afterwards than ever before. It's really a hollow victory, like holding up a shiny trophy in an empty stadium. And I've had that moment too, where I've argued with my husband, convinced that if I just explained it better, he would finally get it, or he wouldn't be hurt because if he understood where I was coming from, it wouldn't feel the same. And I built my case. And when he sighed and said, okay, you're right, the victory kind of felt bitter. There was that moment of, huzzah! But then it went downhill because what I really wanted wasn't agreement. I wanted understanding. I wanted him to understand why I felt the way I did or where I was coming from. So the truth is that most fights aren't about the dishes. They're not about thermostats or bedtime routines. Those are the surface level sparks. Underneath is a much deeper plea. Do you see me? Do you get me? Does my perspective matter to you? When that plea gets missed, no amount of rightness is actually going to mend that rupture. So if you've ever walked away from a fight thinking, why do I feel worse than when I started explaining what was going on? You're not crazy. What you're feeling is that gap between being correct and being connected. And that's exactly what we're unpacking here today. Have you noticed that the smallest disagreements can actually explode into something so much bigger? It starts with something minor. Where to park, who forgot to do the laundry, how the dishwasher is loaded. But within minutes, it's not about the chores anymore. It's suddenly about who always drops the ball or who doesn't respect the other. And this tiny little spark turns into a bonfire. My clients tell me that it's these moments that feels like they're on trial. One person makes a claim and the other instantly pulls up mental receipts. Actually, I did bedtime twice this week, or you're exaggerating. I only asked that once. And before they know it, they're not even arguing about whatever the original issue was. They're proving who was right and who was twisting the facts. And the exhausting part is that both people feel misunderstood. And the one raising the complaint starts to feel minimized and dismissed. The one who's defending ends up feeling unfairly accused. So each one doubles down a little bit more, stacking examples, raising their voice, pushing harder. The argument shifts from relationship to scoreboard. I've caught myself doing this too. Every time I took out the trash or every hidden task that I would handle, I would pull out those receipts and state them as my mental scoreboard of all the times that I'm right and you are wrong, or I did more than you. And what did I even prove? It was like I was defending my worth, but even if I proved my side, neither one of us actually walked away from that moment feeling closer. The painful illusion is that it feels like progress. Winning a round feels really satisfying in the moment, but that deeper need to feel cared about actually gets more and more buried. And what we're really asking in that fight is, do I matter to you? And that's the cruel loop of all of this. The more you try to prove your case, the more your partner feels dismissed. And the more that you defend, the more you actually feel unseen. Two people are building walls out of facts until there's too much distance to even reach across it. So let's reframe this a little bit. The real issue isn't needing to be right. The real issue is needing to be understood. Being right isn't about closing a case. Let's leave that for the lawyers. Being understood is about having your inner world recognized, even if your partner doesn't agree with every single detail. So think about it like this. It's like playing chess. You can checkmate them and declare victory, but if the point of sitting down was to connect, winning the game actually means you've lost in the relationship. So proving your partner wrong works the same way. You've won the match, but lost the closeness that you are actually craving. So when my clients say, "Why do I keep doing this? Why do I argue like I'm a lawyer?" This is my response. It's not because you're broken. You are wired for connection. And your nervous system is getting tricked into believing that providing your case is actually going to find you safety. But chasing rightness usually pushes away the very understanding you're actually wanting from your partner. Your partner gets defensive, your words land as attacks, and empathy disappears. All of a sudden, you're in this argument of what happened. And if you finally figure it out, you're too exhausted to actually look a little bit deeper and feel more understood. So there have definitely been times that I've looked back on my arguments with my husband and thought, wow, why did I waste so much energy proving I was technically right when all I wanted was for him to understand and come close to me? Because really, you're not fighting about whatever it is. The fight is about dishes or tone. You're fighting for attunement, for proof that your emotions matter. And when you see it that way, the shame can start to soften. The argument is not about a failure, but about a misdirected attempt at connection. So when you feel misunderstood, your nervous system isn't treating it as small, it's a threat. And that's why arguments tend to spiral. And they spiral really quickly from "you didn't load the dishwasher" to "you don't care about me." Your body hears disconnection and hits the alarm, and your chest tightens, your face flushes, and your words start to speed up. I've talked about this before. Polyvagal theory basically is how our nervous system shifts between safety and survival. When we feel safe and understood, we stay in connection mode. But the second we feel dismissed, we start to drop into fight or flight. Suddenly, the goal isn't to connect, but it's to protect ourselves. I'll hear it in my sessions like I was calm and then suddenly I was yelling and stacking examples. And that's just survival. The body said, "Hey, this is dangerous. Fight to be heard." All the alarm bells were going off. And they needed to make sure that their partners saw them. Think of your nervous system like a fire alarm. It doesn't know the difference between burnt toast and a real fire, it just blares. Misunderstanding is burnt toast, but the alarm screams anyway. And until you reset it, you'll react like the house is burning down. And this is why being right feels so urgent. Your nervous system thinks agreement will silence the alarm, but it doesn't. Only understanding, not actual proof, actually restores safety. That's why technical victory actually feels pretty empty. The deeper threat hasn't been resolved. This is the conflict loop. You feel misunderstood, the adrenaline spikes, and suddenly you're stacking evidence. Your partner gets defensive or withdraws. Soon, you're both competing in the Who's Right Olympics. Burned out, but actually no closer to one another. And the second loop of connection, the goal isn't victory, it's understanding. Instead of leading with evidence, you start to lead with empathy. I need you to know why this mattered to me. And when your partner responds with attunement, even if they don't agree, then the tension starts to soften. There's more openness to actually understand. When we start to work through this in session, my clients actually experience this as a visceral change. In conflict, they feel their shoulders are tense and their voices get sharp and the room feels really heavy. I can actually see it in session. When they're in more of a connection loop, there's a subtle drop. Their breathing steadies, their posture relaxes. They can take a deep breath, and safety is sneaking back in. I've certainly lived both experiences with my husband. And there's the one side that feels justified in proving my side of it, and the other side that has experienced what it's like when I let that go. I had a grad school professor tell me, you can't be happy and right all the time in a relationship. So you're going to have to choose, are you going to be happy or are you going to be right? When I share that with my clients, it can sometimes take them aback because the two have been so linked for so long. They think that if they are right, then they will be happy. But as we start to unpack and look at these different layers, they realize that they don't have to be right about the situation. They need to be seen. They need to know that they matter. And in that sense, they can be happy with their partner without having to know the play-by-play of what actually happened. In my sessions, I actually don't let clients get into that. We don't talk about the facts of the case, so to speak. We talk about what's happening beneath that. So here's the reminder. You don't have to choose the connection loop every time. You're human. Sometimes you're going to drop into that conflict cycle where you pull up all those mental receipts and you're putting them out on the table. That's inevitable. But imagine if that some fights ended with empathy instead of just pure exhaustion. What you're asking is, do you want to be right or do you want to feel close? And that small pivot doesn't just change one fight, it changes the story of your relationship. So this isn't going to happen each time, but when it doesn't, if you can acknowledge where you took that turn, where I was giving evidence instead of really listening to you, or I was trying to prove that I was right instead of sharing what was deeper. The tool that I want to leave you with today is intentionally simple. Pause, breathe once, and ask yourself, do I want to be right or do I want to feel close? That question will interrupt the loop. It doesn't erase the point, it just gives you a choice. You can remember that there's another option besides proving your case. You can reach for closeness instead. My clients have told me that the answer isn't always neat. Sometimes they really do want to be right, but even naming the choice starts to crack the door open. Later, they can often circle back and say, what I really needed was for you to hear me. So here's a phrase that you can try. I don't need you to agree with me. I just need to know you understand where I'm coming from. That move shifts the focus from evidence to empathy. And it's an invitation and not a demand. And invitations are just so much harder to resist. And I've used this with John in small disagreements. I just want you to get why I'm so frustrated. And His body language changes. He leans in instead of pulls back. He certainly doesn't agree with everything I say, but I get what I really needed. And the argument starts to end right there. So, your takeaway from this isn't to become the perfect communicator. It's to carry this one orienting tool into your next conflict. Do you want to be righteous or do you want to have closeness? Do you want to prove or do you want to connect? And these small shifts don't just stop arguments, they build safety and trust over time. And it actually makes it easier to let go of the facts later on when you take these small steps. So, to wrap it up, winning might give you this temporary high, but it really rarely delivers what you're actually hungry for. Because underneath almost every fight isn't a need for proof, it's a need for presence. You don't want to be crowned right, you want to be seen and understood. That's why victory without closeness actually feels more like defeat. So if you've walked away from fights with that hollow feeling, take this as your reminder. You're just caught in a loop that mistakes righteousness for safety. And like we've explored today, there's actually another way to get through this. Each pause is practice, not perfection. So when my clients say that they try this, it feels awkward at first. But every time they pause and ask, do I want to be right or do I want to feel close? And each time they say that, they carve a new pathway. Over time, that pathway becomes stronger and stronger, and it becomes stronger than the courtroom battles that used to run their show. So I've been doing this a long time. I've had 10 plus years of practice as a couples therapist, and I've felt this tension too. The arguments where I tried to force my own win are actually the ones where I felt even lonelier. But the moments when I slowed down and not only helped my partner hear me, but also took the time to hear him, those are the ones that actually paved the way for more closeness over time and more trust. So, as I close up here today, this is my closing invitation to you. The next time you're in conflict, remember what you're truly fighting for. Not the dishes, not the timeline, and not the final word. You're fighting for closeness, for attunement, and for the relief of being understood. If you've been nodding along during this episode thinking, this is exactly what happens in my relationship, but I don't know how to stop it, I made something for you. It's a free 7-day email course called Break the Cycle. Each day I'll walk you through simple steps to stop the same fight from repeating and start rebuilding real connection without shutting down, walking on eggshells, or trying to do it all perfectly. You can sign up at my website. I'll link it in the show notes. It's totally free. This isn't just about communication. It's about breaking patterns that are breaking you. That's it for today's episode of Coupled With. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe so you never miss what's next. And if you found it helpful, please share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review. It really helps more than you know. And if you're curious about how we might work together or want more resources to strengthen your relationship, head over to my website, www.drrachelorleck.com. You'll find free tools, podcast extras, and ways to go deeper. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.